Okay, hello, welcome to Beastly Theories. I'm your host, Annie McGrath. Today I've got Monica Rawlins with me. Now, Monica is an experienced outdoors woman with extensive background in cryptozoological research and the paranormal. She's been a field researcher for over 17 years and she's traveled across the US to conduct her research. She worked extensively in television and radio, where a quick wit and no-nonsense attitude towards research and evidence has garnered her a solid fan base. Monica, welcome to the show. It's great to see you here.
It's wonderful to be here. Thank you, Andy.
Thank you. Now, it was really, I see you on the internet all the time. I see all of your conversations with the researchers. I have seen you on one or two TV programs like Monster Quest and things like that in the past. Mm-hmm. I was very interested to talk to you. Now, I've interviewed you on my 25th interview, and I don't actually have many women cryptozoologists on my interviews. I think that's not exactly right. Now, I don't want to make you a representative of all women. You are just Monica. I understand that. So those aren't the kind of questions I've got for you. But I am kind of interested in your journey. So I think with all things, it's best to start at the beginning with the initiation into this world. So when did you first become interested in cryptozoology?
Well, really, it's something that I've been interested in my whole life. I grew up in Northern California, and I spent summers in southwestern Oregon, which is a fairly remote part of the state. And my grandfather loved spooky stories and legends. And I was fortunate enough to have him encourage me in that. So in my summers in Oregon, specifically, I can't say that there was really any incidents near where I grew up. But in the rural parts of Oregon during the summers, there were some odd things that happened as a child throughout the summers. And, at the time, I just chalked it up to strangeness. But now being a researcher, looking back on it, I think that there was probably a little bit more to some of the incidents that happened in my childhood. And like I said, I was lucky enough to have a grandfather who encouraged me in studying it. And as a child, I liked everything odd and spooky. So I read as much as I could, of course, about Bigfoot because of where I lived, and the Loch Ness Monster, and any kind of monster I could find a book on as a child. So that really just, was my interest. And then as an adult, I moved to Texas. I moved to East Texas, actually. And I was watching the movie Legend of Boggy Creek one night. And I realized that Fouke, Arkansas was only a few hours from where I was living at the time. Oh. So I hopped on the internet and I researched Texas and Bigfoot to see what I could find. And I found the TBRC, Texas Bigfoot Research Center. And I applied, and that's how I got my start formally into cryptozoology and research.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, that's a good organization to get with at the beginning there too. Now, jumping straight into the meat of it, actually, you had a very significant sighting in 2014 of what's commonly referred to as the Dogman.
Wow, you heard about that?
Yes, we refer to that. Well, I mean, obviously, it's often categorized as a werewolf here, but I realize that Dogman is more of the common vernacular now. Just for any British audiences who are not familiar with that, tell us about that sighting. I mean, what happened? What did you see?
It was, it's something that I'm just shocked, actually, that you've heard about it, because I really don't talk about it very often, because I know it sounds crazy. And I'm very much a level-headed, logical person. And seeing what I saw where I saw it was disarming, to say the least. And it shook me. But the sighting was in a very populated part of, Dallas. I mean, there are large estates there, and acres. I mean, it's a very wealthy part of town. So there's a lot of land and creeks running through there, but still to see something like that in an urban setting was, I know it sounds crazy, and it does. I understand it sounds crazy, but I know what I saw. I was
No.
driving down the road, and I was going to pick my daughter up very late one night from her place of employment. She'd just gotten off. She didn't have her driver's license at the time. So she'd called me to come pick her up. And I was taking a shortcut down this road, large estates, very few streetlights. But I just so happened to be passing under a streetlight, and I saw some movement out of the corner of my eye. And I slowed down because honestly, I thought a dog was going to run out into the road. And I had just turned onto the street, so I was already going fairly slow. And the movement was very quick. And as I was turning my head, because it was on the right-hand side of the road, as I was turning my head to look, I could see something bounding.
Mm-hmm.
And just as I started to turn to look at it, I recognized the silhouette, and it was large, and it had a dog head and big ears. And, you know, a lot of people will say, well, you just saw a dog. But what I saw landed on 2 feet,
Mm-hmm.
and then crouched down into a runner stance, and it was larger than a dog. And yeah, I'm a cryptozoologist. I've studied moths. I mean, I know the difference between a dog
Of course.
and something else. And this thing that I saw was huge. It scared me so much. And I've been alone in the middle of nowhere, in the dark, with nobody around me. And you get spooked from time to time, but not scared. This scared me. It just, and I can't describe it. It just this evil, malicious feeling was just emanating off of it.
Oh, really?
And as I turned to look at it, I couldn't look right at it because my mind was saying, you can't handle that. Don't look right at that. You know what that is. Don't look right at it. But I turned enough to see clearly in my peripheral vision what was happening. And it landed in a runner stance, a 3-point runner stance, and it crouched down and it watched me. It was looking in my car window as I was driving by. And again, the malicious vibe is all I can describe that was coming off of it. Scared me so badly that I ran every single stoplight on that road.
Wow.
Or stop sign, rather. There weren't lights. It's a residential area. So stop signs, 4 or 5 stop signs. I just ran, and I was afraid to look in my rearview mirror because I was convinced I was going to see it running after me. And when I got to my daughter's place of employment, which was maybe a mile down the road, I sat in the parking lot waiting for her, terrified that this thing was following me.
Wow.
And I know it sounds crazy, and I don't really talk about it a lot because I know how it sounds. But I also know what I saw, and I know what I didn't see.
No, sure. I think a lot of the people I've talked to about Dogman type sightings, that's often very similar. That they feel the effect, the malevolent effect of the thing was so strong that they've dreamt about it, following the miles home to their house, and they've been in their cars when it happened, that the sighting, or that the creature somehow found where they lived hours and hours away from where they saw it, which is obviously not very possible if it's an animal. And what was very interesting to me about that, I wondered if and you kind of explained that you did a little bit, if you had any kind of trauma effect from that. Did you fear going back into the woods after that, for example?
You know what is funny is I'm not afraid to go into the woods, because about 6 months after this incident, I was up in Skookum Meadow, which is, I don't know if you're familiar with the area or you've heard of it. It's a very remote part of the Cascades, south of Mount St. Helens. And I wasn't afraid at all. I wasn't afraid in the woods. But here's the funny thing is I would walk every evening because it's very hot in Texas in the summers. And so I would tend to do my exercise at night, go running at night. I was afraid to go running at night. I refused to go running through the neighborhood.
In your neighborhood?
Yes, which is miles away from where I saw this thing.
Uh-huh.
Because I think because I saw it in an urban setting, now I associate that with an urban setting. So every dog barking in the distance, every leaf scraping across the road or the sidewalk had me jumping, and I was terrified because I did try to just go running at night, and I couldn't do it. It scared me so
I
bad.
think,
But being out in the woods didn't
yeah,
bother me.
because you suddenly realize that something like this can come right into town.
Mm-hmm.
And under cover of darkness, we have lots of sightings here in the UK of Bigfoot-like sightings, and there was the famous old thing called Werewolf of Hull sighting that was
Mm-hmm.
sighted, I think, 6 or 7 times in 2016.
I
That
remember
was
that.
seen to
Yeah.
jump, 8 feet, 9 feet over a fence, and 20 feet over a ravine with an Alsatian dog in its mouth.
Mm-hmm.
They were eating. And the people who saw it seemed to be very matter of fact, everyday, general people. They
Mm-hmm.
weren't interested in ghosts or monsters or cryptids or anything else like that. But the effect of seeing the creature was very strong on them. Personally, for myself, I'm a very cautious individual. So I think I always ask myself the question when I'm out looking for Bigfoot or whatever, what if you see one? Do you really want that experience when it's just
Oh.
you and it alone in the wood?
Mm-hmm.
And then that's it's an animal, you're an individual as well, and you both have to decide what's going to happen next. That's an odd
That's a
situation to
fair
be in.
question to ask yourself, and it's good that you ask that because a lot of people are very quick to say, "Well, I would do this or I would do that,"
Mm.
but the reality of the situation when you're in
Yeah.
it is a lot different than what you imagine in your mind.
Have you had other cryptid encounters?
No, and that's what that's what's so funny is I've focused so heavily on Sasquatch Bigfoot research, you know, uh, that I have this one-off sighting in the
Yeah.
middle of a very urban area.
Uh-huh.
Um, it I don't know how to feel about that. I've actually been actively looking for Bigfoot and I see a dog man. But no, I really haven't. I've had paranormal encounters, but I've never
Uh-huh.
had another cryptid encounter.
That's interesting, especially because your sighting was unexpected. You weren't. I always say that searching looks like hunting in a way,
Mm-hmm.
and all of the sightings, that, at least here, that we put together, of all different types of things, were usually incidental sightings. Somebody walking their dog, somebody jogging, somebody driving, always.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
the handful here is a very small amount of people out looking. Never see anything because
Well, here, let me tell you, if what you're hunting is anything like what I saw, the vibe that you don't want to see this
you
thing.
don't
You don't
want
want
to
to
see
be
it.
anywhere near this thing. I don't
Mm.
even, I think you would probably just feel the energy coming off of it, as odd as that sounds, before you saw it. You would want to get out of it. I mean, you would have a bad feeling. You wouldn't want to be in the area.
Yeah.
I can't imagine. And you don't want to see this thing. You
Have
don't.
you have you had a feeling, maybe not the same feeling, but a similar bad feeling while out in the woods looking before? If you suddenly felt, okay, something's here, I've got to get out, or I'm being um, pushed to move out of this
Mhm.
area. People
You
talk
know,
about infrasound a lot, don't they?
they do, and there could be something to it. I mean, we know that animals in nature emit that, so it's quite possible a Sasquatch could admit, or any other cryptid could admit something similar. Um, as a child, one of the incidents we had, something growled at us, and we were on a road that had a 4-foot embankment down to the forest floor. And whatever it was growling at us was ear level with us. It wasn't coming from below us. It wasn't coming from above us. It was coming ear level with us. So,
Oh,
I mean, I'm not saying that was a Sasquatch, but I don't believe it was a bear as a
uh-huh.
researcher now. And then as far as having a bad feeling or being frightened while investigating, I would say the closest thing was oh, I can't even remember the year it was. I think it was 2007 or 8. I was up in the Ouachita Mountains with a group of other researchers, and Brian Brown, a friend of mine who's a researcher, he and I were investigating some noises somebody had reported down by a creek, a little washout by a cabin near where we were. So we were walking along the back fence of the cabin because it did have a bear fence around it because there are bear in the area. And we were not trying to be quiet. We weren't trying to be stealthy or sly. I mean, we had white light going. We were talking normal, volume. And something heard us, and we heard it, I think, before it heard us. It was about halfway up the mountain. And this is in summertime, so there's quite a bit of foliage on the brush and the trees. So we couldn't really see anything, but we could hear it walking about halfway up the mountain, parallel with us. And we shined our light up there, and whatever it was heard us and made a 90-degree turn and came straight down the mountain at us, not trying to be quiet.
Wow.
Wasn't growling, wasn't barking, wasn't doing anything but moving brush. And that's all I could see was brush moving as this thing was running towards us down the mountain. And I had a firearm on my side. Mm-hmm. And we came around the corner of the fence towards the gate, and I did not want to turn my back to whatever was coming down the mountain very quickly at us. Pitch black. All I had was a flashlight and my gun. And I don't normally carry a gun. One of the other researchers had insisted I take their gun. So as I'm trying to back up, he had it on my hip where it was a cross draw, where I'm right-handed, but I'd have to reach onto my left hip to pull the gun out. And that's not how, if I did carry a firearm, I would normally have it. So I was trying to pull it out with my left hand as opposed to my right hand. And I was fumbling. I was scared. Brian's scared. He actually took off. I told him to go, and I just meant, walk quickly. He took off running right past me, which it upset me because I was thinking if this is a bear, which it very well could have been, or a cougar, you're going to kick off its predatory response, and now it's going to pounce on me because you ran.
You ran.
I
kicked off the predatory response, and I'm the victim because I'm
I'm going to get eaten. And so anyway, I was, because I couldn't see what was coming at me, and it was obviously large and making quite a bit of noise. And I just recall just ripping the holster off of my hip. I just ripped it off and pulled the gun out. So I've got a gun and my flashlight, and I'm walking backwards towards this thing. But the odd thing is that it never came into the clearing. It came to the edge of the tree line and the brush line, never came out where I could see it. And it walked back and forth for a few seconds, and then slowly went right back the way it came.
Does that seem like the kind of behavior that a bear would exhibit if it's been running at you? Charge or to break
it could have been it could have been a bluff charge, absolutely. Yeah. And I did think about that, and I'm not saying it wasn't that. It very well could have been, but I find it odd that it wouldn't have come into the clearing. I mean, because there was still quite a bit of space.
I don't have much experience with them.
I don't have much experience with bears bluff charging.
It doesn't seem like the kind of thing that they don't bluff. They come forward, don't they? I mean,
they usually, they come forward and then they break off the charge, and usually, they'll stay in the area. And like I said, it very well could have been a bear just bluff charging us. No growls, no huffing, because I've had bears approach me while I've been in, camping up in Washington and Oregon, and an aggressive bear coming at you. I've had a bear huff and pop his jaw as he's coming at me. Now he wasn't running at me, but he was advancing steadily, and it was dark, and I could hear and then I could hear the pop of the jaw. So I didn't hear any of that this time, but I quickly got inside the bear fence and radioed for other people to come. Oop, my battery's dying.
Oh,
it's all right. So as far as being scared or frightened, probably the closest thing to that Dogman sighting I had was this incident in Oklahoma.
This silent bluff charge.
Yeah.
That's very, very interesting. What I'm also curious about is whether you think, and I've heard lots of stories about this in the past, that women and children are more statistically likely to have an encounter. And if you do think that, or why?
I think it's possible. In if so, I think it's only because women, our voices tend to be less aggressive. Um, I don't know if it's a pheromone thing either, which it certainly could be. Children laughing and giggling, I think, is a curiosity response on the part of a Sasquatch. If they're coming in to investigate, see what that noise is. They see the little hairless, Bigfoot running around, and they're curious. And as far as women go, I'm not sure it's a thing, to be honest with you, because I've done all female expeditions, and I can't say that I got any more of a response or any more evidence than I did with mixed company.
So I think you were on quite a famous all-female expedition, weren't you?
Yes, the one on Monster Quest.
That's the one I saw. Okay, is that the one that features is that the one that the Skookum cast comes from? Or
yes.
Is that a different? That's very.
I believe.
Notable.
Yeah, we were at the Skookum cast wasn't predominant in that episode, I don't believe, but we were in the area where it was pulled out of the ground, and we were with Rick Knoll, who was one of the people there when it was discovered.
I love that. I mean, that's such an unusual piece of Bigfoot evidence.
It is.
Personally, for you, I'm guessing you think there is a Bigfoot in Texas.
I believe Bigfoot's possible. Having seen what I've seen, as far as the Dogman encounter goes, I can't say now.
I mean, my personal opinion on it is that it just needs enough isolation in space. It doesn't need masses and masses of forest, as far as I'm concerned. That's my own personal opinion. And there is a big forested part of Texas, anyway, isn't there? As well as the open land that you have so much space with so few people in it, relatively.
In East Texas.
Things could be out there without you knowing about them.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the big swath of East Texas is piney land. And that's called the Big Thicket, and it is so difficult to navigate through. Mm-hmm. And there are parts of it that just not very many people go. I mean, it's swampland, it's creeks, it's bottoms, it's bayous, it's uncomfortable, to say the least, in the summer. And absolutely, I mean, that's where, when I first got started in research, that I was investigating, because that's the part of Texas I lived in at the time. Mm-hmm. And 100%, I believe a lot of things could be living in there that nobody would necessarily run across on the average day.
That's I hear a little bit about it. My wife actually grew up in Arlington, Texas.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah. She's not from there. She's from the Middle East, but her father had a job with her. So I think between age 6 and 12 or something like that. She lived in Texas, and now she's British. She's going around all the Anglo-style countries. It'll be Australia next, I'm sure. But she said it was a beautiful place. She loved the people, but her memory, coming from a very small Middle Eastern country about Texas, was that wherever they went, it took forever to drive there.
Oh,
because it was so big. And every time they had
large.
to go somewhere, or they had to catch a plane across same state, things like that. And so that was, that's quite an eye-opening aspect to me too, because the UK is a small country too. Now, what I wanted to ask you about is, apparently you have some, not apparently, but you do have some Native American ancestry.
I do.
Is that right?
Yes.
Am I allowed to ask which tribe, which people?
Chiricahua Apache.
Chiricahua. Where are they from?
They're from New Mexico.
Okay.
Arizona, northern Mexico.
I'm totally green on that, by the way. So I want to check, because I will definitely.
They come from the desert. Let me.
They come from the desert. Okay, so you're in a good place right now.
Yeah.
Genetically speaking. So you've got a keen interest in Native American legends. Can you tell us a little bit here about the Skinwalker and Windego?
The Skinwalker is a particular interest of mine, because a lot of people I hear referring to it as, another form of Dogman, that they shapeshift. But my belief in the stories I've heard are they're witches. They're people. They're very, very evil people,
Oh,
because to be initiated as a skinwalker, you have to do some very specific tasks, and none of them are kind or nice.
oh, I see.
And you have to be a very particularly evil person to even endeavor such a thing. Um, I believe they wear pelts. I believe that people on the res, they don't like to talk to them. They don't like to talk about them. You're not supposed to talk about them, because to talk about them draws them to you.
Uh,
Um, a lot of people say, well, they can turn into large dogs. I've
oh,
seen big dogs. I'm not saying you haven't. And I just find it very difficult to believe that anybody is literally transforming into anything.
no, sure, sure. So could this be some sort of religious, ritualistic
Mhm.
ceremony in which a person takes a form of witchcraft? I mean, does that type of dark side of religious practice exist in Native American cultures? I
Oh,
wasn't aware of that.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Uh-huh.
Well, that's exactly what the Skinwalker is.
So
Now,
that's exactly what it is. So
that
who
is
would
exactly what
initiate
it is.
that person? And you said they would have to do some terrible things to be initiated. Who would be responsible for
Another
initiating them?
Skinwalker. Another Skinwalker would.
Okay. So it's almost like if you were to frame it, this is the wrong example actually, but if you were to talk about witchcraft, for example, then you'd have people who said they were white witches and others who might be black witches. And
Mhm.
is that the kind of difference that we're talking about? And these are the same individuals from the same belief structure, and yet these bad individuals are
Well, I would
perpetuating
say
this
they're from the
practice.
same belief structure, because I believe
Uh-huh.
from the Anglo's point of view, witches are different than a Native American point of
Oh no,
view.
I'm not saying that. No, sorry. That's not what I'm saying. I'm trying to make.
Are you talking about solely a Native American
Yes,
perspectives?
it's
Is there
solely
a
Native
white?
American.
Yes.
So
Okay.
I was
So the
trying to make an
medicine person
example
would be a
from.
white. Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
like the shaman, the
Yes,
medicine man, the medicine woman would be
yeah.
considered like a white witch, and the
That's
the
it.
skinwalker would be the black witch.
Thanks for helping me out there. I was plummeting really fast. Um, Now, in regards to things like the Wendigo, is that a similar creature then to the Skinwalker, or is it something completely different?
It's completely different. Wendigo is, well, first of all, it doesn't look like a skinwalker. A Wendigo looks like an emaciated person, very tall, uh, oftentimes described as antlered, rotting, very thin, very, very thin. And they mainly come from the Algonquin people and the tribes up in the Northeast and North Central America, where you would get harsh winters.
Uh-huh.
And it was a spirit that could only possess you if you partook in cannibalism.
Uh-huh.
And now, I don't know how I feel as far as, is there really like a monster called
Mhm.
Wendigo running, literally running through the forests? And they run very fast. They run so fast you can't see them. They run so fast their feet are flame.
Mhm.
They move quickly. But I think it was more of a legend to dissuade people from turning to cannibalism in harsh
Mhm.
winters where there is no food, and that was something that probably was rampant.
Okay, so this is almost like a spiritual parable or fable to warn people against the dangers of.
Well, and some people who have turned cannibalistic say, oh well, now I was possessed by the Wendigo. It's because of the Wendigo, and I think you're just pushing that guilt off
Okay,
onto an
okay,
entity or a
sure.
possession, so you feel better about what you did.
The devil made me do it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. Coming away from that, you're an experienced outdoors woman. Lots of field researchers behind you. What do you think are the most important prep and equipment preparations that one should have ready before going out in the field?
Um, and no matter where you're going, know the terrain, know where you're going. Never go alone. I mean, that's my
Mm-hmm.
number one rule when I was teaching. Everybody, I used to teach newcomers, how to prep and how to get ready to go out and do actual research. Never go anywhere alone. That's just inviting trouble. Always have casting materials on your person, whether it's hydrogel or plaster, depending on your expertise and how comfortable you are with the materials. Have something. And at worst case scenario, you're going to come across a really cool coyote track or a cougar track, and you get to cast that and practice your casting abilities. Because let's face it, I think the number one piece of evidence that researchers are pulling out of the field is going to be casts. So you may as well bone up on that, and always have something in your pack for that. Water, emergency kits. Even if you're going to Farmer Ted's back 40, you should have emergency kits with you. Matches, I forget what they're called now. Putting me on the spot.
No,
they're
okay.
Emergency blankets. Thank you.
Yeah.
I was like, it's the tinfoil thing.
Oh yeah, for shock and things like that. Of course.
Yeah. Energy bars, definitely water. Something to mix the plaster in. I just keep mine in a little Ziploc baggie and pour the water in and mix it up. So, in a pinch, you've got that. But it's very basic things. But my number one thing is know the terrain, know where you're going, never go alone, and prepare for the worst.
So, talking about never going alone, I used to go out a lot alone by myself, and it's, I'm not looking at facing bears or cougars, although we allegedly do have some big cats here most of the time. The biggest fear is a fall of some kind. And
well, you just don't know what's going to happen. Yeah,
you don't know what's going to happen. What about people that? What are your suggestions for researchers, especially women traveling in the wild alone, who want to start their own field research, but they're worried about finding a good field buddy to go with them? Any suggestions? Any groups in your part of the world, for instance, that they should join who could match them with a good field researcher buddy or something like that?
Well, any woman researcher who's watching this can certainly reach out to me, and I will help her. I would be more than happy to talk with her and help her link up with other researchers in her area, because I do know people around the world, and I can point you in the right direction. I'd be happy to do that for anybody. Since I left the TBRC, I'm not really keen on groups. They are helpful. They help you learn. They get you into areas. It's always good. You will always have somebody to go out with you. Yeah. And there are many great groups around the United States. Unfortunately, in Britain and Australia and other parts of the world, I'm not as familiar with the groups, but I do know people. Yeah. Yes, if you're curious and you want help and direction, I'm a very nice person, and I'm always willing to help a new researcher, because I know what it's like to try to get in on these chat groups and try to get on these forums, and you throw your opinion out there and you get jumped on by a pack of rabid dogs who just are sick of that question for the 500th time, and they're going to tell you all about it. So I will spare. I'm happy to spare anybody. Yeah.
So. No, I've seen a few poor newbies is the wrong word, but new people get eaten up in the chat once or twice.
And they're genuine questions, and there's nothing wrong with it. And please do your research. Look, if you have a question, it's likely been asked before. There's plenty of resources on the web to help you. But if you want pointers or anything like that, again, I'm a nice person. I'm happy to help.
Very nice. So you are a nice person, of course. That's very clear, and it's good that they can contact you. Now, talking about TV work, so you've done quite a few TV programs, done quite a bit of radio as well. What do you think of the pitfalls of presenting good evidence in our sensationalized soundbite era? What is there a struggle against what you're filming against what is being presented? Because of course TV has to be interesting and fast. It has to keep people's attention. So how do you navigate that?
I don't know that you do, because to be quite honest with you, any level-headed researcher is likely to get passed over by the TV shows, because They want crazy. They want over the top. You know,
Anti-men.
yeah, well, and I get exactly, and I get, which they're great guys, but I mean, that's not necessarily legit research. You know, real research is boring, and 9 times out of 10, you don't find anything, you don't hear anything. You're just sitting there on the dark. You're out there researching, you know, Joe Smith's sighting, and there's no physical evidence. You just have anecdotal evidence, and you know, that's hard to keep people entertained. And you're going to keep getting shows like Finding Bigfoot, where they never really find anything. And that's not a knock on them. I mean, I know everybody in that show. I've been friends with them long before the TV show was even a thing. And they're great guys and they're great researchers, but I mean, that's the only way to keep it interesting for people, is to keep putting that carrot out there. You know,
the thing with those guys as well is that, they're bona fide, real deal researchers that are still researching after the show's gone. And I met them in Kentucky for the CryptiCon last year, actually. We've become friends since then. And just really, really, same as yourself, happy to talk to people, happy to offer advice. But I always wondered, you know, well, if you're like 4 or 5 people with a camera crew and a unit somewhere near a forest, so you can all go and have like a break, and light stuck to you, you're not going to find much.
You're not. I mean, and to be honest with you, though, real research, you're not fooling anything in the woods anyway.
No.
You're not. It knows you're there. It knows you're there before you know you're there. And
that's their backyard.
Yeah. I mean, it's like somebody coming into your house, and, you know, are you going to be able to hide from them? Probably, because you know it pretty well. So,
I said to people all the time, if you came to my house and changed one of the books on the shelves, just one book, come into the house, and I'd know something was different. Now that's a book, right? You just put another book there. Surely I should notice, but you know your own backyard.
You do.
And I think it's the same with any animal. It's just trees and leaves to us, but those are the markings. Those are the signposts for them. Now, finally, if you could investigate any cryptid in any location and select any 2 researchers, living or dead, past or present, to take with you, what cryptid location and researchers would you choose?
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one, because there's so many to choose from.
Who are you going to offend now by missing them out?
Not going to offend anybody. Not going to offend anybody. I'm friends with everybody, and they know it.
Yeah. So which cryptid? Which cryptid? Money is no object.
Which cryptid?
And which location?
No object. You know, I would probably still stick with Dogman, only because I've seen it, and as scared as it made me, I'm equally fascinated by it. And I was starting to just research it when I had my sighting. And of course, when that happened, I took a hard left and went straight into that and kind of pushed the Bigfoot research to the side in lieu of this. So I would probably stick with that, only because I can't explain it, and I don't know what it is. And I know it's there, and it shouldn't be. And I would probably stick to that research anywhere in the world. I would go anywhere it popped up. If money's no object, somebody has a sighting, I'm going there.
So who are the 2 researchers you're taking with you to look for this scary, terrifying creature, this one that's had this big effect on your life?
For this, now every cryptid would have a unique researcher that I would take, because I know the strengths of many of them. For Dogman, I would likely take Jody Cook, because he's got a lot of knowledge. He's been researching this for years and years before it even became common knowledge to most people. I would say Linda Godfrey, but I don't know that she's really a researcher as much as an author. And you know, I would like to resurrect Renee DeHenden, just to have that personality around me. I love him. He was all the stories I've heard from friends that knew him. I would just even though that's not his field of research, I would just love to have his
just
his
have the
monologue in the background.
You know what? I think in such terrifying situations, you need a good icebreaker.
Oh, he would. Yeah. He would lay it out in no uncertain terms.
Definitely. If I was looking for the Dogman, I think I'd want to take a George with me, like a Seinfeld George. I want to keep it light and breezy and have something to distract me all the way through.
Well, you could probably run faster than George too, so that's good. If it's decided to like come after you, you're in the clear.
In my terribly diminished condition, I think I would definitely outpace George.
You know, I always carry a knife in the field, and I used to joke with my friend Brian Brown, and I'd say, if something's coming after us, I've got my knife, and I will stab you in the leg. You're going down. You're taking it for the team, my friend.
So there's a researcher here who's been researching British Bigfoot for 4 decades. Her name is Deborah Hatzell. She's a friend of mine. She's collected 480 sightings now. She's mapped them all. There's a Google map where you can look at the actual witness sightings. She had a sighting in the 1980s when she was 15 years old. And she was playing truant, bunking off school with a friend in a local park, which has some sort of woods and rivers coming off of it. She saw this 7-foot tall Bigfoot, or wild man as she called it then. And when I first asked her about it, I said, this relates to your life story. I said, was it like a really spiritual experience? What did it feel like? She said, I threw my friend to the floor so he'd get her first and ran 3 miles all the way home with mucus and tears streaming down my face. She didn't leave the house for 3 years, unaided. And that was how spiritual the experience was for her.
It's very spiritual.
But she had a survival instinct reaction, to what was happening. And she's apologized to the friend. Of course, they're friends again now, years later. But she threw her to the floor and said, there she is, and kind of legged it.
Well, I'm telling you, until you're in the situation, you really don't know how you're going to react.
You don't know. And for me, it's significant that, obviously you've been in situations with bears, and, possibly cougars and things like that. So these are animals that you're used to. They're dangerous animals. And yet this Dogman experience made you feel a lot more scared than that.
Oh, terrified. Just I can't adequately describe the terror. I mean, it's a feeling I can't.
How close were you to it? I mean,
very close. Very close. I was maybe 20 feet from it, 30 feet maybe.
It had a humanoid type of body?
It was definitely, yes. It had shoulders. Yes. It was quite muscular. I mean, I could make out definition. I didn't look straight at it because my mind, I don't think I could have handled it, to be quite honest with you. I really don't. No. And my mind was like, don't look right at it. You know exactly what that is. You don't, and you can't handle it. And it was this literal monologue in my head. Do not look right at that. Do not look right at that. And, but I turned enough. I mean, it was right in my peripheral. And it was definitely humanoid. It had very pointed ears. It had kind of almost a hump back. It was hyena-ish from the top of the head to the shoulders. But it had the snout. It was brown from the best I could tell. It was dark, but it was brown. And it landed, I mean, it was jumping. Like a kangaroo. And I mean, maybe it was a kangaroo. Maybe some rich nut let their kangaroo out.
Yeah, I mean, I know people talk about that sometimes, actually, as escaped kangaroos as a substitute for Dogman sightings. But generally, most people's sightings are clear enough to rule out a kangaroo. And even when they're ducked out, you would have perhaps made out a tail. A big long tail.
The way it landed, I couldn't really, see any of that. I mean, I could see it bounding, and I saw it land with, its arm between its leg, a 3-point runner stance, and it had one arm, up in the air. Wow. Like it'd come down and balanced itself when it landed, and then it looked, it hunched down and watched me through my passenger window.
Wow.
It was terrifying.
What What speed do you think you're driving at the time?
Well, I had
30,
just turned
40?
onto the road, and being
Yeah.
residential, I was probably doing 25, 30
Okay.
miles per hour,
That's
perhaps. I mean,
slow.
it was not quick at all.
No, not quick enough.
No.
Well, really, I really don't envy you that sighting at all. To be honest with you, that's one of my big fears that I should almost do that. Now, just finally, before we go, where can people find you online? How can people support you and get involved with your work?
Well, I keep my research pretty low. I'm not involved with any groups. You can find me on Facebook. I'm Monica Frank Rawlins. Feel free to reach out to me with any questions there. You can instant message me. I'm happy, as I said before, I am more than happy to help you out. I'm on Instagram as Monica_Rawlins. Now, if you're looking for a lot of Bigfoot or cryptid posts, my posts are, I keep my research to myself mainly.
I love your posts.
If you're looking, they're
memes.
very mean. They're
mean memes. Yeah,
they're mean memes and pictures of myself. So you're not going to find a lot of
I would suggest that
cryptid
everybody
references.
gets onto Instagram and Facebook and checks out those mean memes, because they really do brighten my day when I see them sometimes. Especially traveling through central London, as I often am on the way to work, and fighting through the army of friendly people on the way there, and it's just kind of like Monica's mean meme, and I'll get me through. That's great.
I'll say what everybody else is thinking.
Yeah,
what
exactly. Exactly. I think it's an age thing sometimes. Since I've sort of hit my 40s now, every time somebody tells me to have a nice day, I just think, go F yourself. Like, what are you saying this to me for?
Yeah. I'll have the day that
nice
it happens.
Yeah.
I've stopped saying have a nice day. Just have the day you deserve. Let karma sort that out.
Yeah.
You have the day you
deserve
deserve.
a nice day. Yeah. The day you deserve. Oh, Monica, it's sad to say goodbye. I should definitely leave you to get on with your evening now. And just thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been absolutely awesome.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. I've very much enjoyed this. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.